Hello, and welcome to the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich. And I talk a lot on this show about showing up, building credibility, building influence. And there's a couple things that you can have done in the background that you could do now while you are putting some of these strategies that I teach you on the show in place. So that's what we're going to talk about today. 5 visibility assets that you need to have so that you can land the bigger deals. Listen, I'm not looking for you to overcharge. I want you to charge just enough so that you can over deliver and your cup is overflowing and they're getting everything they need, right? And in order to get those $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, $50,000 contracts, you need to look the part, right? Like you can't just talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. So there's a few things you need to have in your bag of tricks before you want to go out there and be looking for these opportunities. So these are things that you can do. And it's so interesting because I was just thinking as I was outlining this show that I want to get back to talking a little bit more about mindset on this show because I don't really talk a lot about that. And it's such a big part of what I do. So many of the women that I work with we'll use the words imposter syndrome. I don't love that necessarily for this, but it kind of gets the point across. We know that we're worthy of this, right? But we go for the $5,000. And then when I say, well, what if it was a $25,000 contract? Then they're like, well, then I could do all these other cool things. That's the space I want you in, right? That's the space I want you in. And when you start creating these assets for yourself, somehow it starts to shift so that you start to understand that you are worthy of these higher ticket contracts. And this is not about vanity. It is not about overcharging. It's leverage, right? So we're going to talk about the 5 visibility foundations that a buyer, especially a corporate buyer, is going to look for before they say yes to you, right? So I want to talk for a second about this visibility, right? Because I want to talk a little bit about why these visibility assets matter. I like to look at visibility as currency, not as self-promotion, right? I want you to see this as when you're getting more visible, you're becoming more magnetic in your business. And that's when everything shifts. You're not out there pitching. You're not out there spamming. You're just visible and attracting people, right? And it positions you as that trusted authority. And anybody that's going to give you more than a couple dollars is going to look to see that you're worthy of their investment. And they're going to look to see that you are a trusted authority. So, this is what we want. Like, you might be a hidden genius, but if I can't see what I'm getting for my money in your marketing materials or in the materials that you share with me, I'm probably not going to hire you, right? And especially not for the higher ticket opportunities. You might have all the credibility in the world, right? You might be that hidden genius, but without those visible credibility markers, you're not going to be found and you're not going to look credible. So the goal here is to be building a digital footprint that attracts, right? That magnetizes your ideal clients and that says, I'm safe investing in these people. They're credible and they're influential. Okay, so let's talk about what these 5 visibility assets are. And the first one is not going to shock anybody. I'm going to pause for a second. I want you to shout out into your car, wherever you're listening to this, what you think the first answer is going to be. The first visibility asset is going to be, dun, 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 your LinkedIn profile. Okay, your LinkedIn profile is your first proposal. This is not your resume, right? You may have heard me say resumes are all about who you used to be. Your LinkedIn profile is positioning you for the person that you're becoming, right? For the person that you're stepping into. So we want to rewrite the profile, and your profile is telling these high ticket, these 25K contract decision makers, if you're consultable, if you're bookable, and if you're trustworthy, right? And if it's empty, it doesn't mean you're not trustworthy. It just means you're not giving them anything to go on here, right? So, optimize your headline. Make sure that your headline talks about who you are, who you help, and how you help them. Optimize your about section. You've got 2,600 characters here. Use them. Make it in first person. Talk to me. Don't make it all corporate-y like Karen Yankovich is known for. But nobody wants that, right? They want your voice. They want to know about you, right? It says it's your about section. So tell them about you. Tell them what lights you up. Tell them about some big wins you've had. And remember, it's about you, not your products and services. Okay. They're hiring you, the person here, not I mean, yeah, they might be buying a service, but this is not the place to talk about service. It's to talk about why you are the best person to deliver that service, if that makes sense, right? Use your featured section, right? It's a beautifully powerful section on your LinkedIn profile that allows people to click right through to what you want them most to do. And if you look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see I never have more than 2 or 3 things in my featured section at a time. Because frankly, I don't think people want to see that much from everybody, right? Like, they want all my videos. They go to my YouTube channel. I want it to be powerful. So you're often going to see maybe one of my most recent podcast episodes in my featured section, because I want people to, I put a lot of time and effort into these shows. I want people to listen to them. I think that they bring great value. And they bring great value to my business, right? Positioning me as an authority. I often have a link to book a call in there, right? Maybe I have a link to my newsletter, my LinkedIn newsletter in there. So these are the kinds of things that I have in my featured section, very clearly what I want you to do next. If it's a season in your business where you're pitching yourself to a lot of speaking gigs, put your speaker reel in your featured section, right? Like, that's what you're doing. So let's make it easy for people to know you're worthy of their time, right? So these are the things that position you as an expert. And I want you to look at your LinkedIn profile now and think about this. So this is a little prompt for you. You might want to write this down if you can, or just come back, or just go into the show notes where I've written it for you so you don't have to do that. Use this prompt that says, if a corporate stakeholder looked you up today, what story does your profile tell? What do you see? Maybe ask, like, maybe you have a mastermind buddy or, somebody that, or me, you can ask me if you want, like, what story does your profile tell? All right. So the first visibility asset that you must take care of is your LinkedIn profile. Okay. Did I make it clear that I think this is important? All right. The second thing is PR, media mentions. This is so powerful. And one of the reasons that I incorporated this, I did some work a few years ago with somebody that specializes in PR. And I realized how powerful this strategy is when you blend the LinkedIn strategy with the PR strategy, right? Because what you're doing is you're borrowing credibility. If somebody else is talking about you, right, you get the credibility of the person that's talking about you. If I am like walking through Macy's and I run into somebody, or standing online waiting to pay for something and get to talking with the person behind me, and I say, oh yeah, I teach LinkedIn strategies, I don't really have any credibility. They don't know who I am. But if they read an article, I will tell you that my biggest clients came from reading articles that I was mentioned in, and they say, well, I read about your business in an article, right? So I want you to know that PR, public relations, is not just for celebrities. It's a credibility shortcut, because so many of the people that I work with are maybe new to this next chapter. Like, I often work with a lot of people it's time to blow this crap up, right? And they're stepping into, they want bigger contracts, they want bigger income, they want more wealth. So, but maybe they've never actually been a consultant before, right? They're just left corporate, or they were a coach and they really want these bigger consulting contracts now. You might not have a lot of references and testimonials as a consultant. So that doesn't mean you can't do it. You absolutely can do it. But you want to position yourself so when people check you out, they see this borrowed credibility, right? Because it gives you credibility when you're being interviewed as an expert on the kinds of things you're asking for this $25K contract for, right? And let me just tell you something. Some of these small media mentions lead to bigger corporate sales. I think I mentioned to you, I remember one time I had a salesperson at the time who called me up one day, and she's like, I need an invoice for, I don't know, something like $28,000, something like that. And I was like, am I giving them my firstborn child? Like, what am I doing for this money? And she's like, no, you did, I negotiated a deal with this company, blah, blah, blah. And they read about you in a magazine. I honestly, to this day, don't even know what magazine it was. But they read about you in a magazine, and she cut this big, fat, juicy corporate deal with them. And I did this day, I was like, what, but these are the kinds of things that these little media mentions lead to those bigger corporate deals. Podcast guesting. This is borrowed credibility, right? If I'm interviewed on a podcast, again, that person behind me in line in Macy's doesn't know anything about me, but if they hear me interviewed on a podcast, I borrow the credibility of the podcast host. right? So, it gives me additional credibility, and it all comes up in Google searches, which gives you more credibility, right? You're creating this credibility for yourself. You're not just waiting for this stuff to happen. You're creating it. You go after it. Local press, you should know all your local journalists to talk about what it is that you do, right? And it's not hard to do. Go to some local events, local conferences, and meet some of the journalists and tell them what it is you do. And when you connect with them on LinkedIn, and if you've done number one, which is have a great LinkedIn profile, they're going to recognize you. They're gonna be impressed by you, and they're gonna maybe use you as a source for a story. Look for some industry roundups, right? I love when my name shows up in the industry roundups. I think that's a lot of fun. So think about this. Okay, here's your action tip for tip number 2, which is the PR and media mentions. Think about where your peers are getting featured, and start there. Start there. Right? Put some stuff in, like if some of your biggest competitors, throw their names in a Google search and see where they're getting featured, and build relationships with the people that wrote those articles or the podcast hosts that interviewed them. It's pretty simple. I wouldn't say I'm stalking you because you interviewed Mary Smith. I wouldn't say that, but if we've worked together, or if you've listened to any other episodes of this show, you know how to do that, right? You know how to do that in a thoughtful way. All right. The third visibility asset that I want you to think about are case studies and testimonials, right? There's no such thing as perfection, but there is such thing as proof, right? Big people that are going to hire you for 25K contracts want proof that you've delivered outcomes. They want proof. So, think about strategic case studies, use client voice testimonials, especially from decision makers or recognizable brands. I remember one time my speaker agent was pitching me for a conference, a chamber of commerce somewhere in, I guess I didn't get it because I don't remember where it is, but she was pitching me for a conference somewhere in the US. And I feel like I've talked at every single chamber of commerce in New Jersey. Like, I live in New Jersey. I feel like I've talked at every single one of them, but I didn't have any testimonials from them. I had none. So I called up a few of the people I knew from these chambers and said, so can you do me a favor and write me a LinkedIn recommendation for the talk that I did for you guys? And they did. And now I can use those if I'm pitching myself to speak at other chamber of commerces, right? So, I made sure I went to the decision makers. I made sure that I went to the executive directors of these companies, right? And by the way, I wrote them testimonials back and said, I always love speaking at this conference, this chamber's conferences, because they're so well run. So, you can pay it forward. You can pay it back for them as well. So include some case studies, include some testimonials, and think about a project that you maybe recently have done, and that you might be under celebrating a little bit, right? Like, what might that be? Think of a client that you just saw them post something on Facebook or LinkedIn, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of them. Like, did you impact that? Right? What if you impacted that? And I will tell you that often when I see a client posting something exciting about their business, and when I jump in and say, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you, I remember when blah, 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 9 out of 10 times they put something in there that, like, I couldn't have done it without you, Karen. Right. So, and then that's more credibility and testimonials, right? So it's just that rising tide that lifts all boats. So be generous with your praise, and think about what you might be under celebrating right now that maybe you can make into a case study or a testimonial. Okay. The fourth visibility asset that we're going to talk about here today is your LinkedIn company page. This is your digital storefront. This is not optional, even if you're a solo entrepreneur, because what it basically tells buyers is that you're running a business. You're not freelancing. You even if you are a solo coach or a solo consultant, you want a LinkedIn company page. You want a logo next to on your LinkedIn experience that talks about what it is. And let me just say something. Setting up a LinkedIn company page is one of the easiest things you're ever going to do in your business, especially if you already have a website. You just go to the company page, create how to create a company page. I'm sure I did a podcast on that somewhere. And you just copy and paste from your website, right? And then put it on your company page. And then, schedule some content out there so it doesn't look like there's dust bunnies. It's different content. It is not something that I want you to spend a whole heck of a lot of time on, but for sure, it tells your buyers, especially the big ticket buyers, that you're not just, somebody working out of your basement, even if you are somebody working out of your basement, that you run a business, right? You want to use branded visuals there. You want to have consistency. You want to post thought leadership. You want to post at least monthly, if not weekly, because you want to make sure that there's some activity there. You don't ever want dust bunnies to be gathering on any of your social assets. If you've got a dust bunny gathering on any social asset, I say disable it, right? You don't have to delete it, but disable it. Why do we want people to go to something that you haven't posted on in 3 years, right? So that's a rant for another day. But for your LinkedIn company page, create it, link it to your experience section. If you have other people that work for you, you can link it to them as well. And remember that this isn't optional. If you want the bigger ticket opportunities, this is a visibility asset that is not optional. And then the last visibility asset is you need to have thought leadership content, right? You need to be seen sharing your ideas. And, in the advent of AI, I'm certainly not suggesting you use AI to write your thought leadership content, but you certainly can get ideas, right? You can get ideas and, go into your AI program of choice and just say, here's what I'm doing. Make sure, hopefully by then you've put in, who your ideal clients are and the kind of results you get for them and how you want to be seen and all that other stuff. And then say, for the next 2 months, I really want to be talking about this. And I want them I want to really show up as a thought leader around this. And my particular angle is this. Come up with 10 topics of things I can write about. And then you can even ask them to AI to outline it for you. And then you go in and write it, right? So it's still your voice, but it can take you an hour to pop out a couple of articles where it might have taken you, an hour, 10 hours just to come up with the topics, right? Now we've got help. Let's use it, right? Like, listen, I want to use all the help I can. I am not looking to work myself into the ground. So create regular thought leadership content. This podcast for me is regular thought leadership content. I do a weekly LinkedIn newsletter. I do we started doing a weekly LinkedIn company newsletter, which if you're following our company page, which we'll link below, if you haven't, you should connect with us and follow the company page. We're starting to send out weekly newsletter articles for our LinkedIn company page. Again, because it's a visibility asset for me. Like I want, when people are searching for what I do, I want to come up. And that's only going to happen if I've got the content out there. It doesn't have to take you a long time. If you're watching the YouTube video of this, right? I never can figure out where to post. Right back here, there's a sign that says ease. I'm all about ease in my business. I don't want to be stressed about this stuff. Today, the day that I'm recording this, I'm banging out a whole bunch of work today because I'm going to the beach tomorrow, right? Like, so I'm not saying work yourself to the bone creating content, but understand that thought leadership content is important if you want to be seen as a leader, right? Create some pillar content, LinkedIn posts, articles, PR pieces that talk about your specific point of view on what it is you do, right? It helps build familiarity with these potential buyers, because in this world we live in right now, people want to know where you stand, right? I've talked about this on the show before. I think it's really important that you let people know how you align, right? How you align with the kinds of things that are happening in the world, because they want to align with the people that have similar values to them. So we got to talk about it. And if they can't figure out that, they're going to go with someone else. They're going to go with somebody else. I promise you, it is happening in this world that we live in right now. So you need to build that familiarity with these potential buyers so people know where you stand on the issues that are important to you. And if it's aligned with the issues that are important to them, they're going to be comfortable hiring you. Does that make sense? Can you understand that? You probably have done that yourself, right? So think of this then, like sharing your opinions and this thought leadership content is a service. It's not self-promotion. It's a service, because you're hopefully people will hear things from you and think, wow, I have never thought of that, right? Like I never thought of that. So this is a service. Sharing your opinions and sharing this leadership content is a service. So, here's the thing. I remember when I first started my business, and this was back in like 2011, 2012, something like that. It might have even been like a little bit after I started my business. I decided I was going to do a weekly blog, and I had somebody help me. Like I came up with the topics, but I had somebody help me, and I just got really consistent, and we had a blog come out every single week. And I will tell you, I can probably point back to that as still to this day, maybe the number one thing that built my business success. is that weekly blog way back in like 2012. Because first of all, there is so much freaking content on my website now, 10 or more years of this stuff, right? Of weekly content. So I am feeding the Google beast like crazy, right? And it doesn't take me a lot of time. Remember ease, right? So, show up as that leader, even if you don't feel ready. You can do a weekly piece of leadership content, right? You can create the LinkedIn profile. You can create these assets that I'm talking about here today. You don't need to wait for somebody to anoint you as that leader, right? You just need to show up as that leader and kind of claim it. And build these assets one by one because it's cumulative credibility. I don't know if I can say that again. Cumulative credibility, right? Like it's cumulative. So as you get, you get one podcast interview, you start showing up in Google more. In a couple months, you'll have 5 podcast interviews. End of the year, maybe you'll have 10. And it all builds to building deeper and deeper and stronger credibility because people that are going to give you the 25K or 50K checks need trusted experts, not invisible geniuses, right? So this is not an overnight transformation. There's no stress to do all of this now, but it's about planting these visibility seeds, but doing it consistently. So think about where are you strong with this? Where are you missing the boat? What do you need to do a little bit more of? And, let me know what I can do to help, right? You are already brilliant, right? We just need the world to see it and know it. So take some time today, go back to these 5 visibility assets. I'm going to list them again right now. The first visibility asset is your LinkedIn profile. The second one is a PR and media campaign. So you're building consistent, your name's consistently in the media. Number 3 is case studies and testimonials, proof over perfection. Number 4 is a LinkedIn company page, your digital storefront. Number 5 is thought leadership content. Consistently be sharing ideas. Okay. Consistently be sharing ideas. I just want the world to know how brilliant you are. I want there to be more wealthy women in the world. I want you to be the one getting those 25K and 50K and 100K contracts. They're out there. Somebody's getting them. It might as well be you, right? But you have to look the part. You have to look the part. So if you are looking for some support with this, let's chat. Just grab a spot on my calendar at KarenYankovich.com/call. I'm happy to chat with you about this, and I'm happy to support you wherever I can. These calls are very, very low key. If I think there's something I can help you with, of course, I'll let you know what that looks like. But mostly, I'm here to support you in whatever way that I can. So if you loved this episode, please share this with your network. It helps me help more people. If you haven't yet, give us a rating or review on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. But most importantly, if this is something that you think is valuable to your network, share this episode, right? Share it, tag me so I can see it, because here's what happens. Then I tag it with my audience. And now you're getting my name in front of your audience. I see that because you've tagged me, and I can share it and get your name in front of my audience. And this is how you start getting more of that visibility, right? So share this somewhere, tag me in it, and I promise you I will share it in front of my audience as well. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you back here again next week for another episode of the Good Girls Get Rich podcast.